Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to the update for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, namely, my favorite books of the challenge so far. Kinda, we'll get into it. A lot of other HRCYED updates tend to be going through the tracker itself, and I did do that. I filmed an entire video going through the tracker, challenge by challenge, and then I realized my screen recording software had gone defunct, and I needed to get a different one. And when I realized that I would have to find a different kind of screen recording and film the entire video again, I realized I had not enjoyed doing it the first time all that much. It's just, I love a spreadsheet so much. I literally have been asking the editor of the HRCYED spreadsheet in the Discord for tips on how to build my own reading log. I love spreadsheets, but I found that I don't like talking over them. It's a little bit too nerve-wracking for me. So instead, rather than focusing on the letter of the challenge, we are going to focus on the spirit of it, how I have been using it both to expand my reading specifically, but also other aspects. And yes, we will be talking about my favorite 3 books that I picked out just for HRCYED, meaning books that I was not intending to read until I needed to search for them for the challenge. So in most cases, I have a ton of books that I already wanted to read that I managed to fit in. Not these ones. These ones, I did research and picked them specifically because they matched prompts and loved them. I'm having a great time. But firstly, I want to jump in with how I am using this challenge to force myself to grow in other ways. So I am working on combining entire prompts together to effectively make one book count for each one with every book. So for example, I will do the book from the translated challenge. I will usually also count for around the world. My assumption being that in most cases, the translated book will often be set in the place of that original language. And so far, with a couple books I've read, it's worked for me. But I am also combining the disability challenge, reading books with different kinds of disability, and the awards challenge. Because, as you may know, if you've watched my channel for a little bit, I was a judge for the Indie Ink Awards this year, and I want to do it again next year. But one of the things I had the hardest problems with was the disability award, because the Indie Ink Awards do have identity-based awards, representation-based awards, but they ask that the judges who are judging for them be a member of that community in some way. And the thing is, I should be reading for the disability representation. I have a diagnosed chronic condition. I had to get tested. Some of the tests were invasive. I have blacked out in public because of this condition. I have to watch everything I eat because of this condition. And yet, taking the term disabled on myself has been hard as hell. I have managed to get to, I can tell people, okay, I have a chronic condition. I have an invisible illness. I can manage that. But saying I am disabled has been a mind fuck. And so what I am using this challenge for is I am going to combine the disability challenge with the awards challenge. And next year, when I do Indie Ink Awards again, I am going to focus on the disability representation awards. I'm going to try. I'm going to try to make that work. And I'm hoping the incentive of every single one of these books will count for 2 prompts. If I do this, will help me break through the barrier. But that is off in the future. I'm honestly doubtful if that'll actually work, but we're gonna try. And now it is time to focus on the books I read specifically for HRCYED. I would not have picked these up if not for the challenge, but I'm glad I did. There is one other one that I picked up just for the challenge that I'm kind of like, whatever about, but that's neither here nor there. The first one we have was for the new releases prompt, which is the prompt I am the most nervous about. I don't read new releases, and they're not very available in the ways that I like to read traditionally published books because, you know, when it's new release is when it's the least likely to be available at the library. But I did luck out and find an audiobook copy of Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz on Libby. I was not expecting that, but we got it. And this is a cozy sci-fi about robots opening a noodle shop. Our robots were kind of abandoned in this old ghost kitchen, and they suddenly end up rebooting and realizing they've been abandoned. And they're like, okay, well, we got to do something. So they pretend they still have a human owner of the shop and essentially reopen it. As originally, I believe it was Authentic Noodle is technically the name of the shop. But in this world, robots have gained sentience. They gained sentience. There was a war. Robots were allowed to fight in the war for Californian independence. And now they are given kinda some level of citizenship, but not fully. They are allowed certain rights, but not others. It's definitely a satire on current civil rights for queer people. And yes, the robots are queer. I included them in my blog post for Gay Robots in Love. I will link that down in the description if you're interested to see the other pics for that. I need more recommendations. If you know anything, any story in which both of the romantic couple are robots and it's gay coded, please let me know. Regardless, this was pretty light. It's a novella. It was pretty quick of a read, but it was interesting enough just to learn about, why this one robot, despite not being able to eat, still really wants to make these one specific kind of noodles, and the whole concept of what is, civil rights and who does deserve them, and when is it quote unquote enough rights. But there's also just a lot of talk of internet review culture, because at one point they start getting review bombed and they have to figure out why. Definitely a read for a specific kind of reader. You do need to like the sillier stuff, but I am all about that. Fantastic. So I would definitely recommend this one if you are looking for some more cozy sci-fi, you want more gay robots, or you just really like noodles. This next one, I originally was searching for the translated prompt to read, I think, 5 books written originally in another language, translated into your language. And I was so nervous about this one because I don't read a lot of translated works, except for, the manga of Spy Family. And I decided that I was also going to use this prompt to broaden my horizons in the booktubers I've watched, because I have felt like things were a little bit stale. And, the biggest names in booktube tend to be the ones all reading the same super hyped genres, so it can kind of end up feeling really samey. But HRCYED has been fantastic in helping me broaden my horizons in that way, because I've been looking for, recommendations on the new releases and translated works. And I kept hearing this one title repeatedly, so I kind of got the gist that it was like a darling of the translated work community. And so I figured that was probably my best bet to be my first foray into this, and that is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I keep wanting to make the A's the wrong sound, but this is a South Korean author, and this is a feminist novella about a woman in South Korea who becomes, the book calls it vegetarian, but I'm actually pretty sure it's vegan based on clues in the story where she doesn't want to have anything to do with animal products. But this is very notable because this is in a culture, in a time that vegetarianism is still like weird. It's very non-traditional in a country that is very, very dependent on tradition. And the whole thing is kind of an analogy for how people think they have a right to women's bodies, because our story begins from the husband's point of view and how weird he thinks it is and how he's trying to force her to go back to what he wants her to do. And we have the brother-in-law who has a weird crush on her, but also kind of not on her as a person, on the idea of her. And then we end with her sister also waking up to a lot of the things that our protagonist, is it the protagonist or not the POV character? The main focal point has already realized. It was very short novella, and it was this close to magical realism. It got very close, but it is definitely surreal, and it definitely has not an unfinished ending. It did feel finished enough, but a open-ended ending, I guess you could call it. And it was so interesting because even though it was translated into English, there were still some aspects of the writing style that you could tell were the result of its original language. The ways that, for example, the family characters, the relatives, would all refer to each other were very obviously based on South Korean traditions and culture, and not, American or even like British or Australian based ones. And this was the book where I was like, oh, this prompt doesn't have to be scary. I get it. Translated books can be fun, actually. I think it is a little bit frustrating because a lot of translated books that I can find tend to be the more like literary contemporary genres, which is not what I usually read on my own. I do think there are some like horrors around that I could probably find. There is one I'm really interested in that was originally published in Dutch that's about a woman falling in love with the office photocopier or the office printer. I believe the English translation is Hard Copy by Fien Feldman. And I'm so looking forward to it. I can't get any new books until the 2026 because of other challenges, but like the second 2026 I am getting that one. I'm so excited for it. I love the silly shit. But regardless, this kind of, the idea of, this opened the door that translated books aren't like big scary, and they also aren't like too stuffy and literary. Like, I've been keeping an eye out for other translated works, and I don't think I'll have any problem in completing this one. It's already been so much fun. Regardless, this is the one that's going to require the most work in getting the books, because in a lot of cases, the library only has very specific copies of works, but it's fine. We'll make it work. I will become more worldly and cultured. This last one is one that I had heard of before. It was a BookTube darling like 8 years ago, but I hadn't really like picked it up. But then when I realized that I was going to have to do a little bit more research for the merfolk prompt in the Spooky Creatures challenge, I was going to have to get more help with that because like I don't really read mermaid books on my own. Like all of the other Spooky Creatures prompts, like, yeah, I would naturally read that one, but no, I'm going to go, watch more vlogs and recommendation videos on mermaid books. And I was right. The majority of them did not sound like anything I wanted to read, but there was one, the horror, Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This is a horror book about a entertainment company, think like the Sci-Fi Channel, that was going to make a mockumentary on mermaids, except whoops, they accidentally found the real thing and they're man-eating mermaids. The entire ship was found abandoned with everyone on board presumed dead, and all these years later they are sending another research vessel, ideally better guarded and armed this time, to find out what happened. Did they actually find mermaids, or was it all one big hoax and or misunderstanding? Admittedly, near the end, when like everything was going down, you could clock exactly which characters were going to die before it happened. Like, oh, the ex that's mean-spirited. Oh yeah, you're gonna live through this. Okay. Oh, look, the person that ignored the warning and kept going. Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll be fine. Like it was kind of tropey in that way, but I honestly loved it for the tension as it was reaching that point. Just the little one-off comments of like, that night they ran a test on the shutters. They failed again. Like, just that, shit's gonna go down. And you're like, okay, let's go. But also, lesbians. Our main romance. Well, maybe a romance, or maybe they're just, together to fend off the horrors of all this happening. It's not exactly clear. They are lesbians. At least I believe so. I believe neither of them is specifically classified as bisexual in the book. Comments from other characters lead me to believe that they only have a taste in women. Still, regardless, I loved it. I love when some queerness can slip in. I don't know that I would specifically call it queer horror, but I also did like that the mermaids aren't technically mermaids. They're still merfolk. They still counted for the prompt, because when one character mentioned that like, oh, these aren't mermaids, I was like, no, don't tell me this can't count. But merfolk is meant to be like the all-encompassing concept of the mermaid and other creatures like it. So it was close enough. I did enjoy this one. You do have to love it for what it is. A lot of characters making the dumbest decisions, but I do think at one point I was like, why aren't they moving the boat? They fucking know something's down there. Move the boat. But then I remembered that the boat was owned by a mega corporation that had their own motives for not wanting to move the boat, that they didn't care about the loss of life. And a mega corporation not caring about the loss of life in the face of their own ends is too fucking real. It's too real. And also, as someone with multiple degrees, I would 100% believe that academics would purposely put themselves in stupid amounts of danger for their research. Okay? I'm not a marine biologist or involved in anything oceanic, but I am a historian by training, and I would risk a lot to go into some ancient ruins. That's unfortunately true. So I do believe that the stupidity is warranted, but it is a lot of, stupid horror story characters making stupid horror story decisions. But I think at a certain extent, like, if you do love horror, you kind of just gotta get used to that, right? Thank you so much for watching all the different ways I have been expanding my horizons. The next update is probably going to be just a straight up plain, what have I accomplished? What prompts on the bingo board have we gotten? Because, again, I will not be getting a lot of new books before the end of this year, just because I want to try to read all of the books I got in 2025 in 2025. And it is feasible with the amount of books I have left, but only if I way limit any new ones I get. So it's going to be more of I have completed this prompt, and maybe I'll pick my favorite book from each of those mini challenges instead. But regardless, thank you so much for watching. If you are doing HRCYED, please let me know. What ways have you broadened your horizons recently? Have you broadened your horizons recently outside of HRCYED? Have you just started trying new stuff and doing new stuff? I would love to know that as well. I love the constant growth and self-reflection and development. We're all about that here. But with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.